Chapter 4 Legendary. Tella found herself thinking of unrequited love and kisses worth dying for as she spun the Prince of Hearts' luckless coin on the same bench Dante had. Why had her friend given her a relic from such an ancient myth? She hoped it wasn't because he didn't trust her and wanted to keep track of her. Maybe the rare coin was a gift from her friends to remind Tella of just how skilled he was at acquiring things that were difficult for most people to find. A reminder that he was the only one who knew how to locate her mother. A bell rang. Just a tiny pixie-like sound, but Tella snatched her coin up and looked down the street to where a young man swaggered out of the shop. She followed the deep red lines of his morning coat up to the young man's vibrant eyes, greener than freshly cut marrows, and a bath of crimson clouded Tella's vision. She knew that his young man. He shed his eye patch, thanks Garber, but he still had the same ink-black hair, overstated aristocratic clothes, and impossibly vain expression as Count Nicholas d'Arcy, Scarlett's former fiancé. Tella's hands clapped into fists, now sticking presents into her palm. She only had officially met Count Nicholas d'Arcy once, but she spied on him on several occasions during Carvel. She'd seen him chase after her sister and heard that once he caught her, he'd been willing to do unspeakable things to keep her. Scarlett had managed to escape, but Tella would have strangled him, or poisoned him, or mangled his pretty face, if Legend had promised in one of his letters that he would remove her sister from the game if Tella strayed from her role and interfered in any way. So Tella had been forced to do nothing. But the game was over now. Tella could do as she pleased. The Count was currently several shops away, too busy gazing at his reflection in the window to notice Tella. The wise thing would have been to sneak onto a different street so that he wouldn't discover that she was still alive. But Tella meant it when she said she doubted the Count would recognize her if she walked up to him and slapped him in the face. For what he'd done to her sister during Carvel, he deserved more than a slap, but Tella didn't have any poison on her pockets. She stalked closer. Maybe she'd thrown in a well-aimed kick, and one hand clamped over Tella's mouth, while another bent it around her waist. She kicked, but it didn't stop her assailant from dragging her back into a splintered thin alley. "Take your hands off me!" Tella pitched forward as the arms around her dropped away. "It's all right," the voice was low with a lilting accent. "I'm not going to hurt you, but don't run." Tella spun around. Julian's dark hair was still mussed from Scarlett's fingers, but his eyes were no longer the warm liquid amber they'd been when he gazed at her sister earlier. They were tight around the corners, hard. "Julian, what in the hell are you doing?" "I'm trying to stop you from making a mistake you'll regret." His gaze shot down the narrow red brick alley, back toward the street with the lonesome Count Nicholas d'Arcy. "No," Tella said. "I'm pretty sure if I make that mistake, I'll be very happy. I'm surprised you don't want to bloody him up as well for what he allowed my father to do to you." She nodded toward the jagged scar that went from Julian's jaw to the corner of his eyes. Carvel's players could come back to life as they died during the game, but their scars remained. Tella had heard that during Carvel, Scarlett's fiancé had just stood there, doing nothing to stop Tella's father as he slashed Julian's face. "Trust me," Julian gritted out. "I wanted to bloody up Armando more than once, but, Armando?" Tella interrupted. "Not the Count, not Nicholas, not d'Arcy, or that filthy piece of garbage. Count Nicholas d'Arcy." Julian had called him Armando. "Why did you just call him Armando?" "From the look on your face, I think you already guessed. Armando was never engaged to your sister. He works for Legend, just like I do." Tella swayed on her bare feet as Carvel's familiar mantra rushed back. "Remember, it's only a game. We want you to be swept away, but beware of being swept too far away." That villain! Tella had thought herself immune since she'd been writing letters to Legend as he planned the game. But apparently she'd been wrong. Legend had fooled her exactly like he fooled everybody else. It had never occurred to Tella that an actor might have been playing the role of her sister's fiancé. Legend truly did deserve the name he'd given herself. Tella wondered if Legend's games never ever ended, or if his world was an endless maze of fantasy and reality that left those caught inside it forever suspended somewhere in between the two. Across from her, Julian pulled at the back of his neck, looking more nervous and apologetic. Julian was impulsive. Tella doubted he thought through consequences of telling her the truth. He probably just reacted when he spied her about to go after Armando. "My sister has no idea, does she?" "No," Julian said, "and for now I want to keep it that way. Are you asking me to lie to her?" "Is not as if you haven't done it before. Tella bristled. I did that for her own good. This is for her own good, too. Julian crossed his lean arms and launched back against the alley wall. In that moment, Tella wasn't sure she liked him at all. She hated the claim he just made. Saying something was for someone else's own good was almost always another way of justifying something wrong. Of course, since she said it first, she couldn't probably berate Julian the way she wanted. We're going to Valinda in a few days, Julian went on. What do you think your sister would do if she discovers that she never met her real fiancé during Garber? She'd look for him, Tella admitted. It would be easy to do since he lived in Valinda. Tella had never understood it, but Scarlett had really wanted to marry this man, who she'd never even seen a portrait of. She imagined him with hearts in her eyes, always reading the best things into her bland, unromantic letters. Scarlett would probably claim it was curiosity, but knowing her sister, deep down she probably felt as if she needed to give him a chance, which could be disastrous. Tella once again saw the image of Scarlett sobbing in a bloody wedding dress. The article showed that she erased that future, but there was still a chance it could come about. Scarlett won't like it when she finds out you've lied to her, Tella said. I think of it as fighting for her. Julian rubbed the dark stumble covering his chin. He looked and sounded like a boy a little too eager to jump into a street brawl, yet Tella sensed genuine mental underneath his words. She still felt a little uncertain as to how long Julian's affections toward her sister would last, but in that moment Tella imagined Julian would cross any and every mortal line to keep Scarlett's heart. Ollie, it made her trust him more. It might have made Tella's life easier to refuse them. Then Scarlett without worry about Tella being spotted by a count while they were in Valinda, because the real count had never seen her face. But despite how much simpler it could make things, Tella wouldn't take the risk of telling her sister the truth. The union between Scarlett and the count would end in heartbreak and devastation. The article had shown this, and the coroner would lie to Tella. All right, she said. I agree not to say anything to Scarlett about Armando. I have not, as if Julian knew Tella would comply with the deception. Despite my actions during travel, I don't enjoy deceiving my sister. But it's hard to stop once you start. Is that how it is with you? You spend so much time lying you can't tell the truth? The words came out sharper than Tella intended, but to his credit, Julian didn't bite back. Caraval might all feel like a lie to you, but it's my life, my truth. The last game was as real for me as it was for your sister. While she was fighting for you, I was fighting for her. His voice roughened. I might have lied to your sister about who I was, but my feelings for her were genuine. I need more time with her before she learns anything else that might make her doubt me. What happens if Scarlett sees Armando is still on the island? Legend is sending him to Valinda early, along with a few other performers. How very convenient. Since I'm doing this for you, I want a favor, Tella added with a bit of inspiration. Julian rocked his head back and forth, appearing to consider it. What sort of favor? I want to know Legend's real name. Who is Legend, really? Julian laughed before she even finished. Don't tell me you're in love with him, too. I know him better than to fall in love with Legend. Good. And no, Julian said, no longer laughing. That's not even close to a fair trade, and even if it were, I can't tell you Legend's name. Tella folded her fingers, her arms around her chest. She hadn't really expected him to answer. The few performers she'd been able to question had given her similar responses. There had been a lot of chuckles and smirks, and some had just ignored her altogether. She imagined it was because most of them had no clue as to who Legend really was, but Julian's response was different enough to make her hope she finally found someone better informed. If you can't tell me Legend's name, Tella said, point me in the direction of someone who can, or we don't have a deal. All remaining traces of Julian humor vanished. Legend's identity is his most guarded secret. No one on this isle will reveal it to you. Then I suppose I'll just have to expose the truth from Armando to Scarlett. Tella turned to leave the alley. Wait! Julian grabbed her wrist. Tella resisted the urge to smile. He was desperate. I will promise not to tell Scarlett about Armando. I'll share the name of a performer who might answer your questions. Might? He's been with Carvel since the beginning, and he knows things, but he doesn't give any information for free. I won't believe him if he did. Tell me his name and we have a deal. It's Nigel. Julian answered quietly. It's Legend's fortune teller. Tella had never met Nigel, but she knew who he was. The young man was unmistakable. Every inch of Nigel, including his face, was covered in bright, lifelike tattoos that he used to predict the future. Of course, Nigel's role sounded different on Julian's lips, as if it wasn't truly there for those playing Carvel, but to pass on information to the master of Carvel. Be careful, Julian added, as if Tella needed another warning. Fortune tellers aren't like you and me. They see the world as it could be, and sometimes they try to bring about what they want rather than what it should be.